is love in this place. Whenever two or more of us gathered in His name, I found the world is all the same. There is love in this place. Whenever two or more of us gathered in His name, I found the world is all the same.
A pleasant night or morning or good afternoon, wherever you're joining from. This is another Level Up Your Marriage with Paul and Raquel Blake out of Jamaica, and we are indeed happy to be here on this platform one more time to discuss a subject or a topic on marriage, how to help us to have better marriages and better relationships. We are looking forward to having a very good discussion tonight on the topic that we are proposing: when one spouse is trying and the other is not. So get ready for this discussion. Raquel, how are you?
I'm good. Thankful to be here. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Welcome again. Good
Yes.
to see you too, right beside me.
Yes, that's it.
When one, you said we're gonna be talking about when one spouse is trying
Yes,
and the other
and the other
is not.
is not. And this is a it's a topic that I believe is worth exploring, and it's coming from our experience as counselors and as persons who have been married for a while and have the experience of looking from the inside and the outside. And communication in marriage can be challenging. I don't want to use the word difficult. I want to use the word challenging.
Okay.
And we usually find that in relationships, and this is not just about marriage, but just about in any relationship, we will find persons with different type of personalities. One person talks more freely, one person is more open, and the other one might tend to be reserved. And a lot of it comes from many different things as to why people are this way. But sometimes those things clash,
True.
and it can become a little challenging to navigate. And we use that word a lot, to navigate to navigate the relationship. And so we want to look at that tonight. We want to help couples to move from just surviving to thriving. We want to allow persons to understand that you can have growth that is intentional. You don't have to drift on the sea. Right? But our growth as couples can be.
You can chart your growth.
You can chart your growth. Yes.
Yes.
Right. So, what you want to say about the topic?
Well, the topic, many persons would say that, well, in a marriage, it's it should be easy going. There should be, most times, both persons should be trying, but the topic is a very real one.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes painful experiences in marriage cause one supposed to be trying and another to be not.
Mm-hmm.
Because really, as you said earlier, sometimes for whatever reason, for trauma, for one spouse might be the one who is always trying or always talkative, and then another other person might be more reserved, laid back, and so probably complacency gets in the picture, and one person stop trying, and while the other one continues.
Yes, true.
So
And I think that one of the most difficult conversations to have is a conversation with yourself, while another person is present. It's one thing to talk to yourself when you're alone, because at least you can answer yourself then. But when you are in a situation where you are expecting communication from another person, and it seems as if you are just having a
or,
one-sided conversation,
or a
or
block, a block.
yes, or even if you get responses or response, it is usually in one or two words, and that can be somewhat frustrating.
Yes.
It can
Um,
it can over time cause all kind of frustrations and build up resentment, and I think it's just not good for overall communication. Your spouse can feel a bit disengaged,
Isolated,
isolated, because you are uninterested or inconsistent with your communication,
which
uh,
leads to frustration,
which leads,
mounting
yes, which leads
frustration.
to frustration, and not only that, because we look at the frustration in terms of just the emotional side. But if you are having a one-sided communication, it can also lead to you feeling alone. It
True.
can lead to a sense of loneliness, that you are just in this relationship by yourself, right? Because you are expecting that your spouse is going to be there to go through the different stages of the relationship with you, and part of that is communication. It's and when we say communication, it's not just about speaking about the daily stuff of life, but sometimes to get real deep in conversations. I mean, I think that all of us, as persons who are married, we have a desire to, uh how would I put it, to communicate with our spouses on a deeper level, to communicate with our spouses in conversations that are enlightening, uplifting, conversations that will drive you, right? Conversations basically that will help you to grow, right? So it's not just about how do you love me? But really to have what we call heart to heart
Conversation.
conversations, to talk about deep deep things. And when I say deep things, Raquel, I don't mean the deep things don't have to be about the relationship. The deep things can be about life itself.
Conversations about life,
Conversations about life, conversations
about
about
hopes or
hopes,
dreams.
dreams, experiences,
Mhm.
and so forth. And when you are having those conversations, you would really want to know that your spouse can contribute to the conversation, and you're not just having a one-sided dialogue. And so we want to look at this idea of when one spouse is trying and the other is not. So let us start with this truth, Raquel, that marriages are rarely 50-50 at every moment. And interestingly, who I heard with a very good discussion on this particular topic, Michelle Obama.
Okay.
There is a video that she did on Facebook. She was doing a podcast talking about marriage, and she was actually saying that anybody who enters marriage expecting 50-50 is going to be seriously disappointed,
Disappointed. True.
because marriage is for the most part not 50-50. And what she said is that based on where you are in the relationship, sometimes one person is going to give more than the other, right? Sometimes one person is going to give 70 and the other person is going to give 30. And sometimes I suspect that there's going to be some kind of balance
Balance
also,
also.
right? And she said, if you go into that relationship expecting that it's going to be a 50-50 relationship, then you are going to be seriously disappointed. So I draw from that there are different seasons in marriage when one person carries more of the
More
weight,
than the other.
and I think that is the part we're afraid of, to carry the weight, right?
But I mean, anybody who's married would tell you, would, in all honesty, would tell you, would agree with us that there are times when it's not 50-50. Many times it's not 50-50.
Mm-hmm.
But when the issue is when when the imbalance becomes a pattern, when one
True.
person is
Yes.
always
Yes.
trying
And I like
and
that,
other,
Raquel. I like that. Expand up the pattern
right,
when it becomes a pattern.
pattern. So where one person is the one, where, let's say for example, the let's use this, the husband is the one who's always trying,
Mm-hmm.
right? And there's he doesn't get the husband doesn't get a chance to, relax, when
Mm-hmm.
you're on the scale, to balance the scale there has to be some movement up
Yes.
and
True.
down.
True.
And then if he's the one who's always up, then he feels that he has to be always trying, always perfect, no
Mm-hmm.
rest, always loving, always attentive. And then at what point does he get a chance to, for the balance to swing, where
Yes.
where
True.
his
True.
wife now,
True.
we're using the
Yeah.
element of the scale
True.
to to make this illustration become clear to us. So when pattern, just, I mean, you can understand, if you have two hands and one is up all the time,
Mm-hmm.
the one that is up will
Is
get
going to
tired.
get tired from
Yes,
at
at
some
some
point in
point.
time. Yeah.
And
True.
in marriage, it's a support system,
Yes.
right? And you one person can't do
And
marriage.
let us also agree that when we speak about communication in marriage and the need, especially for conversation, we don't want persons to come away thinking that you must just always be talking, 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 talking. And that's not what we are saying, because I also believe that when in a relationship, especially marriage, there are times when you need moments of solitude and peace from both sides, right?
Yes.
So we are not suggesting that you must just always be talking, talking, talking. In other words, you must just always have something to say.
No,
uh,
that's not the
no,
essence of the conversation.
right? Yeah. So what are some of the because usually, Raquel, when this idea of one spouse is trying and the other is not, what are some of the common reasons why sometimes spouses just kind of step back?
Well, the one that comes to mind right away is, some kind of hurt or
Mm-hmm.
resentment, unresolved issues.
Mm-hmm.
When when a spouse feels that he or she doesn't get a chance to be heard, there's this lack of awareness, or burnout. When
Yeah.
one person is always trying,
Yeah.
then of emotional
Emotional
burnout
burnout. Yes.
will,
True.
will take place.
Yes. Different emotional wiring, that is one of them too. And the big one, fear of conflict
Fear of
and
conflict. That's
vulnerability.
right. That's
Right.
that's an
That's true.
important one.
I want to go back to one of the first ones that he used, the whole thing about emotional burnout. I remember having a client, a couple, some time ago, and it was the wife who first came to the session. And one of her challenges was that she was unable to reach her husband. He was basically emotionally unavailable, and she was constantly reaching out to him. And by the time she got to the session, this is what she was suffering:
Emotional
emotional
burnout.
burnout, where she had tried so much
Everything.
that she just felt that she had nothing more to give. And interestingly, we did quite a few sessions, and she still could not reach the husband. And probably about a year or two after, the husband showed up at a session. Well, he was the one that reached out to me for a session, because by this time now, the wife not only was she emotionally burned out, but by this time she was emotionally unavailable, right? And she had reached a point now where she was unwilling to try anything else.
Because she had
But
done.
he was now in a position where he recognized that something was wrong and needed to be addressed. But by this time, she was just closed off, and she was unwilling to try anything else, and he was now frustrated because he was now trying to reach her and he could not reach her. And so when I brought up that particular example, I want to remind us to, in terms of um this whole thing of being emotionally available, it is very, very important when it comes to how we communicate, right? And I, I think people have different levels of emotional availability, and also I would also say that we should also temper our expectations in terms of what we expect the other person to give, right? Because sometimes we what we expect the other person to give, the other person might also be unable to do it.
Right. So when you say that, when you talk about the expectations, expectations, it's important for expectations to be shared,
Hmm.
because if you have an unspoken expectation, then you will have
Yeah,
challenges.
that's
So the
true.
expectations has to be shared, and if where there are challenges or where there are gaps, then it's by having a discussion, by sharing information, that there'll be some understanding that, okay, at this moment in time, I can only do so much.
True.
At this moment in time, if you bring up this topic, then I might respond
Different. Yeah,
differently.
true. True.
So there has to be even minimum amount of sharing of information or sharing
Hmm.
of expectation, so that if the spouse who is always trying needs to have some understanding to be able to be patient, or the spouse who is not trying needs to give some information to say, give me some time, be patient with
Yes.
me, I'm having this challenge, so let
So
us let us work
I am
work
I
it
am
through.
I am hearing you say that it has to be an ongoing conversation.
Yes, it
It
has to
has
be
to
an
be
ongoing
an ongoing conversation. But here's another thing, Raquel. Even in terms of our expectations in how we communicate and all of that, I think we also have to be aware that people can't do what they don't know how to do, right? And I think that is, you realize that sometimes we have some expectation of our spouses that we have um drawn from some eras, that we have never really asked our spouses, can you do this, can you engage in this kind of way? Because again, even as men, Raquel, um men can communicate, but men, I think for men, emotional communication and availability is something that we have to learn.
Right, and when you mention that, what comes to mind is there are two things that came to mind, and during the premarital counseling,
Hmm.
some of these things would come up,
True.
and in the postmarital counseling, some of these things would come up. And so if somebody feels, if the husband or wife feels that he or she is unable, or not not able enough to do something,
Hmm.
and maybe by conversation or by frustration over time, they realize that there's a gap, then it's important now to seek external help. But sometimes it might take a long time. Sometimes person might be they want to feel vulnerable to
Hmm.
say, I'm unable to do this, or I can't. And so the element, that's why I said there must be some level of patience. But in order to be patient with your spouse, there has to be some disclosure.
Yeah, true.
There has to be some sharing of
And
information.
which again is really why things like premarital counseling is so very important, because at least it helps you to unearth
On
something,
earth,
so that when you do get married, you're not taken by
taken by
surprise,
surprise,
right?
and you get a chance to think it
Yeah.
through, or to, uh, as we talk about, one trying and one not trying, the idea too is that it might not be deliberate. The one who is not trying, trying is
Yes,
not, it's
true,
not a,
true.
it's not a deliberate action of, I
And
don't want to try.
to be honest, I think
It,
that most times it is not
it's
deliberate.
not deliberate.
Right? Most
And
times it is
so
not.
the spouse have to give each other a chance, give
Yeah.
each other the benefit of the doubt that um there's a willingness to try, but there's a gap or
Yeah.
there's a block
So
somewhere.
so what is the emotional toll though? in just trying and not, not getting through. What's the emotional toll where that is concerned?
What's the emotional toll?
Hmm.
Well, we said it earlier. You're gonna be frustrated.
Yes.
You're going to be. There might be anger.
Mm-hmm. True.
There-
Aye.
a number of you're gonna be emotionally drained.
Yes.
Also, so the person who is trying will be drained, but also the person who is not trying
Mm-hmm.
will also feel drained too, because the person who is not trying will be disappointed in him or herself,
Yes. True.
will be frustrated with him or herself,
Yes.
because
Yes.
you
I agree.
see, my spouse is making an effort and I'm unable to move from
Mm-hmm.
point A to B for whatever reason.
Yes. That's
So
right.
there has to be some element of, some tenderness,
Mm-hmm.
some patience, and that.
And this kind of frustration also can lead persons to want to give up on the relationship,
True,
right?
true. So what would you say to somebody who is in that place?
Even before we get there, that it, when effort is not reciprocated, it turns into resentment, as we said before, and that kind of unresolved resentment can, erode any kind of love connection that you have. And one of the dangers is that it does it almost silently over time, right? It's not something that just hits you right in the face, right?
True.
It kind of eats away at the relationship, chips away at it bit by bit, and sometimes by the time you realize that the relationship has fallen apart is oftentimes when it is too late. And so sometimes when this kind of thing happens, especially when you are the one that is trying, the tendency sometimes, Raquel, is to keep score. Right? I have done 1, 2, 3, but you have not yet moved to even one.
Exactly.
And you will find now that when you start keeping score, that keeping score actually builds up into resentment and anger. Because here is it, that I am here looking at how much I'm giving, and I am running myself to a wreck by giving. So that is keeping score. And so when I look at what I'm giving, I'm going to measure what I'm giving against what your deficiency. And over time that leads to the anger and the frustration, right? The mindset also. What does the mindset become?
But how do you, when you mentioned that a while ago, uh I'm just thinking about the element where it's not easy for a spouse to bear themselves to each other, and
True.
when that happens,
True.
you talk about the resentment, keeping of scores. And so, um we're talking about, as we're talking about marriages and, union and relationship. So in all relationships, I would encourage the husband and wife to have this mindset or approach where have a mindset or approach where I feel that I can bear myself to you and you're going to love me. You're going to always love me. You're going to always be there for me.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important that husband and wife have that mindset where in the worst of times
Mm-hmm.
and in the best of times, I will love you. With a caveat that there has to be some communication. There
Yeah.
has to be
True.
some
True.
dialogue
True.
that sends the message that I might not be at B, but I'm trying to get there.
Yes.
You might be at K, and I'm only at B, but I want you to know that I
Mm-hmm.
am making an effort to not necessarily get to K, but just to move from point A to point
And
B.
I think that also is where trust comes in. Um, you know, initially we spoke about the vulnerability,
Yes,
and one of the things that when you because putting out effort, Raquel, takes a level of vulnerability, right?
true.
And especially when you don't know what to anticipate from
From
your
the
spouse,
uh-huh.
right? you have to basically open yourself. It's like you are laying yourself bare and hoping that this person will respond in kind.
Kind.
And so it really requires a level of trust to be vulnerable to the where you can you can try without, and it trying without receiving criticism, right?
Right. So a lot of reassurance is required.
It
A
takes
lot
a lot of reassurance,
reassurance.
right?
Reassurance is
And,
required.
and I find, Raquel, that many times the reasons why a lot of spouses don't try is the whole element of criticism, right?
That's true.
I am doing my best. I mean, my best effort might not look like my a best effort to you, but it is what I can give at the moment. And sometimes what comes across from an effort is criticism, right? And as human beings, when there's nothing that shuts us down more than when we are criticized after trying.
That's true. That's true.
Right.
Uh, that's true, and that's why I said, one spouse might be at K while another person is struggling along only at B.
Yes, true.
And so the dialogue or the mindset is that I'm trying, you're trying, but I guess my effort is not
Yeah.
as wide or as deep as yours.
Yes.
But
And so we're moving to another section though.
yes,
Some of the reactions that come, with when you are giving your best effort. What are some of the reactions that can come? There's some of the do's and the don'ts.
well, like you
Right?
just said, sometimes there's criticism,
There is criticism.
and y- there's a phrase that we should try to connect before you correct.
Yeah, true.
You know,
Yeah, I love that phrase. Love
so
that.
connect before you correct,
Mm-hmm.
and in reading some time ago, it's important that in marriage, the element of criticism you should try to avoid it, in the sense that we all have weaknesses, we all have areas for improvement.
Mm-hmm. True.
And so in a circumstance like this, where one is trying and the other is might not be trying, or the other one is trying, or the effort of one is not as wide as the other,
Mm-hmm.
then there should be some recognition for an effort.
For the effort. Yeah, it's true.
Many
True.
times we don't the effort is not recognized. So
And
I would put it out that there
and
must be
it's
some
it's something
recognition of
that
an effort.
it's supposed to be a genuine response, right?
Yes.
So yes, you're not just buttering up the person,
No.
right? It's a genuine response to the effort that has been made. Don't weaponize your effort.
Right.
And I find that we do this a lot in marriage. I am the only one who cares about this marriage. Yeah, the guilt trip thing,
You're right.
right? I am the only one who cares about this marriage. You're right, and we feel kind of justified when we are doing that, and I think it is. Just imagine how your spouse hears that, right?
It's just like in criticism,
Yeah.
like it's like a stab.
How your spouse hears that, and we always talk said that if you say it in your head and it don't sound good, then saying it out aloud is not going to make it sound any better. So it is better you keep it to yourself, right? If and that is true, right? So we have to, no matter what is happening, that we don't weaponize it to be used against our spouses.
Right.
Um,
But yes, I agree with you. So don't weaponize it, minimize the level of criticism, but then um, one spouse, the spouse who is always trying, might feel the need to, what do you say, match the, because
yeah.
you're not
So
engaged with me, I just pull back
I
too.
pull back. So let me teach. I
Let
will
me teach
teach
you
you
a
a lesson.
lesson. But
I think that is probably one of the worst things that you can do, right? Because that
that's not
again,
helping anyone.
that's not going to help, right? That for me, that tends to build up more resentment more than anything else. So because you are disengaging, I am also going to disengage, right? But what with that, you'll have two silent people in the house. You have two people living at two different corners of the house.
Yeah, as
Right.
you said, as two disconnected
Two
people, what do they
disconnected
create?
people. Yes, that's true.
They
That's
create.
true.
They
Yes.
don't create a connection.
That's right.
So it's important to try and build the connection. And where we know that other fact, it might be hard. We're not saying it's going to be easy. What we're saying, it takes some effort, it takes some patience, and it takes some hope.
Yeah.
I think in marriage, the element of hopefulness, don't ever lose hope in your marriage.
Yes.
The element of hope is very important.
Don't try to control the outcome. That's another
Don't
important
try to control
one.
the outcome.
Because the truth is, Raquel, you can't force somebody to change their heart. Right? It's not. It doesn't work. Right? So if you are not getting the best from your spouse, forcing them is not going to help. Right? Because again, you are going to be forcing the person to do something. One might be something that they don't want to do, right? Something that might not even be natural for them. And when people feel as if they are being backed into a corner,
they're given an ultimatum.
Yes, the natural response is to become defensive, right?
And reactive.
And reactive.
Yeah.
Right. It's like a mongoose caught in a corner or in a trap.
Yes.
What is he going to do? He's going to lash out.
Fight back.
And fight back.
Yes.
And if we, talking about, your spouse trying and you probably you want them, the other not trying, and you want them to try more, backing them into a corner, or there's a word I'm looking for. Soon come to me. Backing them into a corner is not going to help, right? It for me, it causes more damage than good.
There's going to be resistance,
right?
There's going to be some resistance. But what you would want to do is to just...
You know what I'm looking for?
What's the word?
Emotional blackmail.
Emotional blackmail.
Emotional blackmail. That is the phrase I'm looking for, right? Don't try to emotional blackmail your spouse into being a better spouse, right? And what's interesting, some of these responses, Raquel, are what I'd call the easy responses.
Yeah.
The responses that build tend to be more difficult, tend to be more challenging.
True.
But these responses are the responses that will help you to grow over time.
True.
So I would also want to say that when you're having these kind of challenges, don't just take the easy way out, right? Because yes, the easy way out might give you a temporary reprieve, but it might not help you to grow.
And the relationship will just be flat
on the surface. Yes, on the surface.
As opposed to thriving, you just be surviving. You just going through the motions.
Yes, true. Very true. Right.
So it leads us to the next question. Then how should we respond? How should as I said earlier, there should be hopefulness, and there should be some wisdom.
Yes.
Yeah, respond with wisdom, where as opposed to trying to pressure and shift from pressure to invitation.
Yes.
How would you demonstrate that?
So
how would you make that come alive?
So I say, you never spend time with me.
That's not inviting me.
Yeah.
That's not inviting me.
No, but
that is
how
would well, you could say, I miss spending time with you.
True. Yes.
That would bring a smile to your face, right?
Yes.
I miss spending time with you. Can we do something? Something on
together?
The weekend or together?
That's two different conversations. That's two totally different conversations. You never spend time with me is what? Is accusing.
Yes.
Right? Drawing you up. Right? You never spend time with, but saying I miss spending time with you. And can we spend time? So that kind of creates a scenario where your spouse, you're longing. You're looking forward to something.
Yes.
Right. So that's one response. Another one, consistency. it builds trust. You have to be consistent. So stay consistent rather than overbearing is important.
And stay hopeful, because this element of where I'm the one who's always trying. I'm the one who's always trying. When will you ever get it?
Yeah,
That's
yeah. When will you ever get it?
that that really doesn't encourage. But the element of staying hopeful and trying to remain consistent rather than overbearing, because
Yeah.
of course we like we're saying, we know that it will be hard, it will be challenging, but the element of consistency as opposed to be overbearing is what will make a
And let,
difference.
let us also understand that change is not immediate.
True.
I change, yeah. So don't do something today and expect that it's going to change today. Right? Especially when somebody has fallen into a bad habit. You
Yes.
have to also expect that change can be gradual, right? And it's not going to be immediate. Communicate clearly and calmly. Say what you feel without the accusing, right? And I think we don't get that one very well.
No.
Right?
Yeah, people say what you feel without accusing them. Many persons, they wait until the resentment, the
The
frustration
build up,
build up,
it builds up, yeah,
and then there's an explosion,
yes.
and that's
Or
not
or, or
helpful.
speaking up right off the top of your head without calming down,
That's not
right?
helpful at all.
Not helpful. So it that kind of disconnect. I have one example. I've been feeling disconnected, and I really want us to grow closer. So like something that I've heard before. Uh, right. So say what you feel without the a tone of accusation. That helps. Focus on what you can control.
So this element of focus on what you control is for which one of this pose? The one who is trying or the one who is not?
Um, I think it can work both ways.
Also.
It can work both ways. Focus on what you can control. And well, for the spouse who is trying, I think that person may suffer more frustration than the one who is not trying.
Yeah.
And if you are suffering frustration and resentment, then one of the things that you're going to have to watch is your tone, right?
True.
You're going to have to watch how you speak, how you bring that message across. In some when I do workshops, I always tell my audience that one of the important thing about communication is that message sent must be message received,
Received.
right? If you are sending a message and your spouse is not receiving the message that you have sent, then there's no communication.
Yes.
And a lot of times the message gets lost in translation because of the tone in which it is brought across. And so we have to be very careful of our tone. We have to be careful of our attitude. We talked about judgment. You can't get your best out of your spouse by when you're communicating with them. It seems as if you're judging them rather than trying to have harmony, right? So that your attitude has to be important. Your consistency is also important, and even your emotional maturity, right? Because these are what help to shape the relationship more than the
Sorry.
demands that we make, right?
Yes.
The worst thing that we can do when we want better from our spouses is to make it come across
Excuse
as
me.
being demanding. I am demanding. You set an ultimatum that if this doesn't happen, then I'm going to pack my bags and go to my mother. You're not going to get the best out of your spouse
No,
by
not
by
at all.
doing that.
Not at
And
all.
so, focus on the things that you can control.
Excuse me.
Set healthy boundaries is another important one. You want to take up that one?
And well, in terms of setting healthy boundaries, like point you made earlier about I'm gonna pack up my bags and go to my mother. That's one of the boundaries too, where especially during the times when couples are having a good time, when the relationship is healthy and
Mm-hmm.
good, then those boundaries should be set so
True.
that
I
when
agree.
there's a challenge, like when one spouse is trying and one is not trying,
Yes.
then those boundaries, those guardrails,
Yeah. I like
those
that term.
guardrails would help.
Guardrails.
Yes, would
Those
help.
guardrails.
Would help in the relationship
Yes.
because we would have agreed beforehand
Yes.
that when there's challenge, when there's a misunderstanding, when things are off,
So there are some things that we are
we
not going to
going to
do.
do, and right,
Right? Like sleep in the other room and sleep on the couch
exactly.
and pack your bags and go to mommy for the weekend
Exactly.
with the children.
Yes.
Right?
So
You have
and
to set those kind of
boundaries,
boundaries.
and also one of the boundaries that ideally they would set beforehand is that they're willing to do whatever it takes to make the marriage work.
Yes, true.
And so sometimes one spouse might have to remind the other that this is one is dropping the ball or what's this happening. Let us assess.
Yeah.
Let us see what's going on so that we
Yeah,
can grow
I
again.
remember discussing with a friend once. I think it was when you and I were. I think it was early in our marriage, and I was discussing something with a friend of mine, and we were talking about divorce. And I said to her that one of the decisions that you and I made from even before we got married, that we would never see the divorce as an option. We don't discuss that word at all. Right? That is never going to be on the table.
We don't use the word to
Right?
threaten each
Yes,
other.
we don't use the word to threaten each other. And her response to me was that that is always an option. Yes, she said very clearly, said that is always an option for me. Interestingly, she's not married anymore. She got divorced, and it when we open the floodgate for things to happen, right? When we don't set those kind of boundaries, then we move from finding solution or finding amicable solutions to finding the easiest way out.
To copping out,
Right?
exactly.
Finding the easiest way out, and that is never very healthy when we talk about. So those boundaries are important.
Definitely.
So if your spouse is not communicating the way that you want, and by the way, remember that this kind of not trying or trying can also be on both sides.
Yes,
right?
it might be one season.
It might be
season for one, and
in different areas.
Correct.
Right? Because we have so many different areas in our relationship. So one person might be trying in this area, but not trying in another area. And another spouse can be trying in that particular area, but not trying in another area. So it's not always in black and white, right? There are some gray areas, and so we need to also be aware of that. So let us move, Raquel, to the spiritual dimension of this discussion. From a biblical perspective, love is not, as we said, is not always reciprocal in the moment, but it has to be intentional, right? Love is always intentional. Um, Galatians chapter 6 verse 9: do not grow weary
in well doing, in
doing
doing
good. And you never thought about how this passage can apply to marriage,
like this, right?
Because the truth is sometimes our relationships can be challenging, right? Sometimes, depending on what is happening in our lives, it can be so many different circumstances. It may feel as if you are being worn out, right? And when you get to this point, you have to also understand that even in those times when you feel as if you are being worn out, you have to make a commitment to keep going on, right? And that is so important. Romans chapter 12 verse 18. If it is at all possible, I love
Live at peace.
Yes, I love the
with everyone.
King James and the New King James version. It says, if it is at all possible, live at peace with everyone. And who does this apply to more than our spouses, right? To live at peace. So I would also want to say in this kind of discussion, Raquel, that as spouses, we ought to love peace, right? Love
Love
peace,
peace.
love
That's
peace.
true. That's true.
Yeah, I am finding that sometimes in dealing with a lot of our couples, but it's like they are more warmongers than anything else. There is nobody in the relationship to step back and say, let us be
A
at
peace.
peace, right? So yes, even when your spouse is not trying, not putting out the best effort, we ought to still love peace, right? I always want to come back to that place where peace is the ultimate, right? um you know, different persons may feel as if they are carrying the weight emotionally and spiritually in their marriage. But I want to remind us also that all is not lost, because again, when we discuss marriage on Level Up Your Marriage, it's always from the spiritual point of view, because we believe that with God all things
Are possible.
are possible.
Yes.
And so it is important that we understand that.
You know,
Yes.
I appreciate the point about seeking peace and
Hmm.
the element that you can't do marriage alone.
True.
God who created marriage, then He's always invested in helping
Yes,
couples in
that's
their
true.
marriage. And so, with these guidelines about not growing weary, with these guidelines about trying to live at peace with all men, and including your
Yes,
spouse, your husband or your wife.
including your spouse. Yes.
So the element of prayer is important. The element of, because prayer changes things. And so, if one person seems to be lagging behind,
Hmm.
is still not willing to try, prayer is important. But also, like we said, no, it might be time to seek the help of a counselor,
Yes, that's true. That's
because there
true.
might be something.
External help.
Yeah, external help. There might be some trauma. There might be some block. There might be some mental challenges
Hmm.
that might be having an impact on the person's effort.
Yeah, that's true.
You
That's
know,
true.
we
That's true.
just don't know. And so, we want to be holistic, and to be to look at it in a way that is the entire person.
Yes, that's true.
So if one person is always trying and the other is not trying, and apparently you can't find a reason as to why is it so hard to try, then prayer plus the help of an external person might be the next step.
Yeah, true.
Because we're not saying that anybody should be ignorant, should be just ignorant and just going along.
Yeah.
But we're saying that there must be intentional effort. If the intentional effort continues without any movement, without any action, then you
True.
have to do something about it. Do
That's
something
true.
about it.
Yeah, that's true. So what in terms of the action plan? Um, what would we want to leave with couples who are going through this phase of their lives, when one spouse is trying and the other is not? What are some of the practical things that we could tell them to
Well,
do?
like we said, first pray about it, whether together or alone. And of course, us initiate a conversation,
Initiate
one
the
that is calm, one
conversation.
that
Yeah.
is honest, one that says that
At the right time.
at the right
Yes,
time,
at
no
the right
matter
time. We
no,
can say that more. Yeah,
yeah. So
at the
whatever,
right time.
and a reassurance, like we said earlier, whatever is shared, whatever challenge is happening, that I'll be here. I'm not going to abandon you.
Mm-hmm.
Because the person who is not trying, or the person who is unable to try for whatever reason, might feel ashamed, might
Yes.
feel that if there's if the person bears themselves, then they might be abandoned.
Mm-hmm.
And
I agree.
so there has to be some kind of reassurance that I'm here for you. We're gonna do our best to work through this
Yeah, it's
together.
true, true, true.
So
Right.
you have to show an intentional act of care.
Yes, true, true. Right.
And
And they stop measuring for
Immediate
immediate results.
results.
And we said that before, that any kind of change that is going to come is going to be gradual, right? It's not something that you don't talk about it today and it changes within 2 hours. It's something that you have to consistently build on and be patient. Patience is very important. We always talk about giving your spouse grace, right? I
Yes.
tend to use that a whole lot in my marriage counseling, that we need to give each other grace. I
Grace.
use it when I do weddings also, that
Just
we
to
need to
remind.
we need to give each other grace. And I think that is one of the things, not only in marriage, Raquel. I think the world has
The
forgotten
world has
about
not
that,
about. True, true,
about
true.
giving, learning to, and the interesting thing, we always want grace.
We always want
We
it.
always want grace and mercy, but it is one of the most difficult things to
People,
give to somebody who is in
yeah,
need.
people ready to give up
and
and ready
and,
to
and
cut off.
especially, Raquel, in marriage, we can only remember how hurt we are, right? And when we remember how hurt we are, we lash out and we do all kind of things, and not understanding that the same grace that you are not giving, you are going to need that grace at some point in time.
True.
And so, yes, your spouse might not be trying, not be giving their best effort at the moment, but also exercise grace and patience. That it's very, very important, right? So.
And so, for the spouse who is the for the one who is trying, we
Mhm.
just want to encourage, be encouraged, but also be wise. Um, and don't stop investing in your relationship. Don't stop investing in your marriage. But one of the things that is so important is that you don't want to lose yourself,
That's right. True.
because
True.
as one of our counseling colleague would always say, is that it should be two complete persons who get married, and so you don't want to lose, in an effort to, the one who is always trying, in an effort to keep the marriage going
So
and
so
so
we're not
on. You
so we're
don't
not
still
we're
don't
not
want to
we're
lose
not we're
yourself.
not telling you to become a punching bag or a doormat,
Exactly.
right?
So don't lose
Because
yourself.
and yes, that's true. I think
Yes.
we have to make that very clear, and especially to the one who is doing the trying,
Yes,
right?
definitely.
It doesn't mean that you must allow yourself to become a doormat or a punching bag for anybody, but there are healthy ways of going about getting the best out of your spouse. So that is something that is very important for us to remember. Healthy love, as we said, is patient, right? It's intentional, and
And
it is
honest.
honest.
And it's
I think
honest
that's
because,
important too.
right, so the person, so the one who is trying, is also necessary to be honest, that I'm trying, we want the marriage to go, we have committed to it, but I'm frustrated.
Yeah,
I've done many things. What do you think is the next step?
and the one who is not trying must there's a level of honesty that
That
is
is
also
also
demanded,
expected from
right?
that's right,
rather
from the one who
rather
is not
than
trying.
to become accusing and to deflect,
Correct.
right? There needs to be if you know that you are not giving your best effort, then own up to it, right? And also, the truth is that the person that is not trying may not even be aware of their own deficiency, right? And so, that's where giving grace comes in again.
True.
Give grace, because one of the things, Raquel, when persons are in a long-term relationship as marriage, the whole idea of complacency can
Can
become a reality. And every now and then, all of us, we slack off from time to time,
true.
right? Even unconsciously sometimes. And when that happens, we must own up to it when it is pointed out. And it also says that when it is pointed out, it is supposed to be pointed out in a loving way.
Way. Right.
And this is where I would apply 1 Corinthians 13, right? When it says
Does,
love does not do this, and love
doesn't keep
does
a
not,
record of
yes,
wrong.
love, and all of that.
Yes.
That I think that those are very, very practical steps. Remember that some of the strongest marriages that we find are built in seasons. I think that's important.
Where one person choose to lead with consistency.
Yes, marriage.
And remember, that is not always 50-50.
Yes. Strong marriages are built in seasons. I love that.
You know, so the element, when you said that, I'm just thinking about, you know, resilience.
Resilience.
You know, through
We
the
spoke
tough
about
times.
yesterday.
Yeah, through the tough times.
Yes.
You have to be resilient.
One of our good preachers called it stick to itness.
Yes, that's right.
Yes.
You know, so we have to keep going and keep showing up.
Keep showing up. Yes, very important.
And like we would say, we have to keep leveling up.
Yes, keep leveling up.
Because in order to maintain your relationship, it's important to level up. It's important to grow. It's important to get better at it.
Yes.
You know, so how would you like to end? We are at the end. So what's the challenge? What's the
question? What kind of effort does my sport recognize as love? And am I expressing it in a way that they understand? That's a good question. This reminds me of the love languages.
Yes.
Right. Don't assume when we talk about trying. Don't assume that the effort that I'm giving is the effort my spouse needs. Because I can think that I'm moving mountains when in my spouse's eyes it seems like a pebble. Right? Because what she needs, that's not what I'm providing.
Yes.
And so it's very important that we recognize that as part of our effort in trying.
And and one of the things that's coming to mind as we wrap up is that some persons, maybe the person who is not trying might be fearful, might feel afraid.
Yes, might feel afraid. Yes,
and
true.
It's important, even in feeling afraid, communicate.
That's
still
right.
Be honest, because life is full of challenges and full of situations, but it requires us to be courageous even when we are afraid.
And those of us who are much braver, we need to allow our spouses to be vulnerable.
That's correct.
Right? Allow them to be vulnerable.
Provide the reassurance.
Provide that reassurance. Don't let them feel as if they are going to be living in fear even when they are trying. And commend them for the effort. Commend them for the effort. Right? It's always worth it.
Yes. So
we have come to another end of Level Up Your Marriage, and this has been a very wonderful discussion, and we pray and hope that something would have been said on the platform here tonight that will help some couple somewhere on the globe enjoy a better relationship. Again, we say marriage can be challenging, but marriage is rewarding.
Amen.
It takes work, right? But if we put in the work, we will surely get the rewards, and allow God to give us the direction, allow God to carry us to where He wants us to go. So,
and one small effort can bring great results.
And we have seen that work over and over again in our own relationship, and also in the relationships that we are trying to mend as counselors. We have seen it work time and time again. So this has been Level Up Your Marriage with Paul and Raquel Blake out of Jamaica, and we are so happy to have the opportunity to be on this platform to share from our experience as counselors and as Christians who have been married for
19
years this year, and we give God all the glory. Join us next time for Level Up Your Marriage.
Take care.
Bless.
There is love in this place. Whenever two or more of us gathered in His name, I found the world is all the same.